Look, I'm not saying this comic basically confirms that Nightmare is going to be in Doctor Strange 2. I'm just saying, remember when Marvel released that story where Wolverine fought Blade and then we covered it and I was like, the only reason they're doing this story is because they're going to announce something about Blade, and then like 2 days later they announced something about Blade. This feels like that. So first things first, this is a terribly written story. It's written by Ralph Macchio. No, not Ralph Macchio from Karate Kid. Don't worry, I looked it up too. Nonetheless, this story is, it's written very much in the same way that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby used to write Doctor Strange stories back in the 60s, right? Where like Doctor Strange would cast a spell, but it would just be him doing something and just saying it in a magic sounding way, you know, like, I cast the spell of a dozen eggs, for we are low on eggs and need more, right? It's basically that. What this does is it initially picks up with Baron Mordo, right? And Baron Mordo basically conjures up his astral form and then travels to the dream dimension to meet with Nightmare. And what we find out is that what Nightmare has been doing has been subtly influencing the dreams of Doctor Strange. That literally he's been kind of forcing Stephen Strange to relive his own experiences, really his own origin multiple times. But each time he does, it kind of erodes a little bit away from him. Now, the other part of this, and I don't even know how you explain this, the other part, there's literally this point, right, where like Nightmare's talking about how powerful he is, and he says, within this hand, I hold several of the supposedly all-powerful Beyonders who invaded my realm years ago in their ill-conceived attempt to conquer the multiverse. I have toyed with them long enough. See now, all their vaunted energies have dissipated in this place beyond the pale. They have learned the error of their ways too late. So basically, Marvel's confirming that Nightmare's more powerful than the Beyonders, and I don't even know how you explain that. There's only one way to explain this, right? So, for those of you guys who don't know what the Beyonders are, and I don't know anybody who doesn't at this point in time, but those of you guys who don't know what the Beyonders are, these guys killed the multiverse. Not technically it was Doctor Doom and Molecule Man who did it, and Stephen Strange, really an army of Molecule Men, but the important thing here is, there was a point in Jonathan Hickman's Avengers, New Avengers. I mean, seeing this in the comic, this is obviously a sign I need to go back and read Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers and Secret Wars again. But the thing about this is the Beyonders killed all the cosmic entities across the multiverse and then killed the living tribunal. And it was actually these three who did it. Depending on how you look at it, and I don't know any other way to look at it, they were the second most powerful being to the one above all. I don't know that they could have defeated the one above all, and we never found out. But what Marvel's basically saying here is, at some point along the line, the Beyonders traveled to the realm of the dream dimension. They traveled to Nightmare's realm. And in doing so, Nightmare stripped them of their powers and then has basically been tormenting them ever since, and then got rid of them, right? Literally just kills them here. And like, that's it. It's nuts, man. It's kind of ridiculous. But the bigger takeaway from this is the Beyonders were like killing things across the multiverse. Remember, the Ultimate Universe has been reborn and it's been here for a little while, but we haven't seen hide nor hair of Nightmare in the Ultimate Universe. What I think Marvel's doing here is they're moving in the direction of saying Nightmare is a multiversal being. This is seemingly verified by Marvel Overture, that story that we covered and never really finished, where basically Nightmare defeated the Living Tribunal, right? They're like, what Marvel's doing since the announcement of Doctor Strange 2, what Marvel has seemingly been doing is amping up the power of Nightmare to present him as this guy, this ridiculously OP character. Because in years past, Nightmare was powerful, sure, I guess, but he was never anybody who was on par with like the Beyonders or the Living Tribunal. He was just a dick that would make you relive bad dreams. And that was it, right? Like that's literally all he was. Nothing more than that. But like, they're amping this guy's powers up in ridiculously high levels. But the other reason why I say this basically kind of confirms Nightmare being in Doctor Strange too is because the task at hand, and the reason why Nightmare's basically been screwing with the dreams of Doctor Strange, which looks like it's what's happening in the Dreams little mini trailer that we got for Doctor Strange 2 Into the Multiverse of Madness, is that the whole goal is for Baron Mordo to basically enter into the Sanctum Sanctorum of Doctor Strange and to steal the Darkhold. And in doing so, use the Darkhold to bring Nightmare into the main Marvel universe, and that Baron Mordo would basically rule the earthly dimension, right? Basically the main Marvel universe as a whole, while Nightmare just rules the dream dimension and seemingly everything else, right? So essentially, like, what we're talking about here is Nightmare entering into their realm, and then by doing so, conquering the multiverse. And basically Baron Mordo would rule the main Marvel universe, and and that would basically be it. It's kind of nuts, man. Like, I mean, you guys see this, right? Like, I'm not making, like, it's not like I'm interpreting this the wrong way, right? Like, you guys see kind of what's going on here, right? Now, having said that, the rest of the story is written like garbage, but here's the thing. What goes on is you switch over to Doctor Strange, and effectively Doctor Strange is having these conversations with Wong, but he's talking about how he's restless all the time, he can never really sleep, his anxiety's really high, his favorite restaurant closed. That's not true, but it probably didn't help, right, if that was the case. But nonetheless, right, it's just his life is kind of he's really in mental and emotional turmoil. And one of the things that happens is as he goes back to bed in order to rest, Ralph Macchio just kind of gives us this, like, I don't know, 5 or 4 page explanation of like Doctor Strange's origin. Literally, this comic, one, it's a one-off, right? So it's just a one-shot comic. There are no sequels to this, not that I'm aware of. And 2, it's designed to be like a new reader's entry into Doctor Strange. So if you're a person who's never read comics and you want to get into Doctor Strange and you stumble upon this, you're gonna be like, this feels a lot like Doctor Strange 2 Into the Multiverse of Madness. I have to believe that's what they were shooting for. But in the middle of all this, of course, because Stephen Strange is kind of reliving his own origin over and over and over again, where of course he's basically a very arrogant surgeon, ends up being caught in a car wreck. He loses the ability to use his hands for surgery because of the damage they sustain to the nerves. He ends up going for all these different treatments, stumbles across the Ancient One. The Ancient One basically helps him become the Sorcerer Supreme, or teaches him magic anyway. Baron Mordo is basically a dick, and then ultimately, because of Stephen Strange exposing Baron Mordo as a bad guy, the Ancient One brings him on full time. Baron Mordo kind of sticks around for a while and then gets the boot, and then we're here. Like, that's basically it. But the whole thing behind this is, of course, Wong basically grabbing him as a result of him having this bad dream, and the two of them talking about how there has to be something more to this than Stephen Strange simply just having a series of bad dreams, right? I mean, he's the Sorcerer Supreme, and for the most part, Stephen Strange has like his mental and emotional state on lockdown. So if he suddenly starts experiencing all these really bad dreams, all these kind of crazy situations, somebody has to be doing something. And where they initially have this bit of a discussion of, okay, well, maybe it might have something to do with Nightmare. I mean, he has always kind of done this to me before. It's also really more Stephen Strange as a result of his dreams questioning himself. His confidence begins to wax and wane, and that's when Baron Mordo makes his presence known. Now, following this is where I say this comic is rough. It's written like amateur hour, right? So just the dialogue and like the talking between the two, right? So literally, like, Baron Mordo shows up here, or at least Stephen Strange greets him, and is like, such an entrance, will you compensate me for the shattered door? And then Baron Mordo says, bravado, your deteriorated physical state allowed me to penetrate the mystical barrier around your domicile that relies on your well-being. I came from my castle in search of the unique volume you keep here, the Darkhold. And Stephen Strange is like, that thrice cursed tome has been in my keeping for many years, Mordo, and considering the dangerous and diabolical nature of the spells on its weathered pages, I have no intention of passing it to the likes of you. And then he casts a spell, and Mordo says, such a feeble spell. I expected more from the fabled Sorcerer Supreme. Can it be something troubles you? And he says, it seems ages ago since we vied for the Ancient One's attention. If only he were present to see you in such disarray. And then Doctor Strange replies, you were kept on as his disciple only so he could keep an eye on you, preventing you from communicating with the malignant forces that would enslave our world. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, it's written bad, man. Like, it's just bad. It's just I don't know how else to explain this. It's written like a poorly written soap opera. Like, it's just, haha, I know you, Baron Mordo. Enter explanation of who you are in overly dramatic and magic-y sounding words, and it's just like, okay, I guess. But there are some cool spells that get cast here. For example, we basically end up seeing like the Vipers of Valtor. Now, again, we've seen the Vipers of Valtor throughout Doctor Strange comics a lot. The timing of this is just really intriguing, right? We're literally like, that's what we saw in the Doctor Strange 2 Multiverse of Madness trailer, right? So it is cool to see those things. Of course, you do end up seeing the Clamp of Sidorak. I mean, again, like, just to drive this home, guys, just to drive this home. There's a point when the Vipers are cast, right? Doctor Strange says, no, I'll not succumb to this. I bring forth a spell of banishment to send these slithering horrors away. And the response of Baron Mordo is, let the clinging clamp of Sidorak silence your voice so that not another spell may issue from your lips. And Doctor Strange says, go. I'm just throwing it out here, guys. It's written really, really, really bad. But the important thing here is that ultimately Baron Mordo ends up getting his hands on the Darkhold and then basically leaving. Now, here's the important thing about this. As far as I'm aware, in my knowledge of my Doctor Strange mythos, and again, I'm by no means as knowledgeable with Doctor Strange's history as I am with, say, like the X-Men or something like that, but I know a lot. I'm not aware of there being really any instances where anybody got their hands on the Darkhold for the purpose of summoning Nightmare into the main Marvel universe. More often than not, it's usually Nightmare trying to find his own way into the main Marvel universe. So putting people to sleep or using Doctor Strange as a vessel so he can try to take over Doctor Strange's body and then enter into the realm of the main Marvel universe. I mean, Doctor Strange kind of looks like Benedict Cumberbatch anyway. So, it's just one of those things, right? Where it looks like it's really being written more because it's based on what's going to be happening in Doctor Strange 2, The Multiverse of Madness, than anything else. But essentially, you basically pick up in Transylvania where you end up having Baron Mordo, who of course summons these or uses these various spells, and in doing so, opens a barrier to the dream dimension, right? Opens a barrier, not even really to the dream dimension, but to the realms of the Fear Lords. Now, one of the things that we should probably do, depending on how things unfold with Doctor Strange 2, we should probably create a hierarchy video that focuses on the various Fear Lords that are out there, right? Like the demon beings that are out there. Because technically you have the Dweller in Darkness, who is the most powerful of them all, and then you have Nightmare, and then you have several others that kind of fit around there. But more recently, it looks like Nightmare is the most powerful out of all of them. And it's always kind of been that way, but just unofficially confirmed in Marvel, to be honest with you, that like Nightmare is powered by literally the nightmares of all sentient beings. And that's what Marvel Overture established, right? What would happen if Nightmare basically put the world to sleep and then fed off the world's dreams? How would that unfold and what would it look like? That was the answer to the question that we got. Like, he would just become ridiculously OP. It's an infinite source of power, right? Just a ridiculously infinite source of power that allows him to basically take on all comers, which included the Living Tribunal. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it was a little hard for me to accept, right, that Nightmare could take on the Living Tribunal. I was like, I mean, I'll swallow this pill. It's an enormous pill, but I'll swallow it, we'll see what happens. And the story was cool until the end. But the thing about this is that that literally with this kind of rift being opened up, this sort of fissure, this tear between realities, between dimensions, of course, Doctor Strange arrives just in time. And then a fight breaks out between the two of them again. Now, because of what's going on here, and because Doctor Strange is realizing that it's basically Nightmare who has been infecting him or forcing him to relive these same dream sequences over and over again, he really just kind of begins to take himself back, right? His confidence begins to reemerge again, all that kind of stuff. His heart grows 3 sizes bigger than it was before. And then ultimately he ends up basically defeating Mordo, right? Basically overcoming Mordo, taking him out, and that's basically the end of him. He doesn't kill him, right? He doesn't really kill Mordo. But this is a moment whereby Nightmare is momentarily able to make his way into this realm. Now, one of the things that I want to point out here is it's kind of a big deal, because as far as I'm aware, this is about as close as Nightmare has gotten to being able to tangibly invade the main Marvel universe, right? Like physically showing up here in this realm in a way that allows him to stay here. He has shown up in the realm before, but it's one of those things where like he appears for like a little bit and then ultimately ends up having to go back, because much like Mephisto, the longer he's away from his realm, the weaker he becomes. And he's already weak as soon as he leaves. So then that weakness just kind of increases as time goes on. But even at a weakened point, because of where Doctor Strange is, Nightmare could still overcome him. And so Stephen Strange does the only thing he really can do here. I mean, it literally gets to the point where like Nightmare just seizes control of Baron Mordo with the intention of taking him away, right? And literally he's like, help me, save me. And Stephen Strange, I mean, it's kind of a dick thing, right? So Stephen Strange responds and he was like, you were willing to sacrifice our very reality and all its inhabitants in pursuit of your mad dreams. You wanted Nightmare's world to devour ours so you could rule by his side. Now let the scales be balanced and it devour you. Essentially, Baron Mordo is begging for his life and Stephen Strange is like, sorry about your luck. I don't know what to tell you. But basically he closes the portal and so seemingly Baron Mordo is whisked away to the realm of Nightmare, and like that's it, right? Like that's the end of him. And then in turn, of course, because the day's saved, you end up having Stephen Strange that he takes the Darkhold back to his Sanctum Sanctorum, puts it back on the bookshelf, and then finally gets some peaceful sleep. Now, here's one of the things that I want to establish here. This does not feel like it's in the main Marvel universe, right? I mean, it could be, and that's why I'm kind of alluding to this fact or referencing the main Marvel universe, because it could very well be in the main Marvel universe. We haven't seen Baron Mordo since the events of the death of Doctor Strange, and that was kind of like the death of the actual Doctor Strange. And now there's a new one, right? Clea is the new Doctor Strange in Marvel Comics. So it looks, I mean, from what I could tell, Stephen Strange may very well die at the end of Doctor Strange 2 Multiverse of Madness. For those of you guys who don't understand why, it used to be the Marvel Cinematic Universe followed the comics, but as the MCU became so ridiculously popular, and as they started realizing that they could basically get away with crafting their own stories, now it's the other way around. And the comics usually follow the movies. And so with the death of Doctor Strange story being a pretty significant story at the time, that essentially there's no more Doctor Strange. Clea stepped into that role. And so it seems like that may very well be what's going on in Doctor Strange 2, that Stephen Strange is going to die at the end of that movie. I don't really know if that's going to be the case or not. Supposedly he's supposed to have more projects and things he's supposed to be a part of, so I don't know, right? It's anybody's guess, and we won't really even know until the movie comes out. But yeah, that's basically what's going on here. Terribly written story, but it's got some amazing moments in it. So with that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this to an end, and I will catch you all later. Peace.